The sound came first, a rhythmic thump, distant, mechanical, growing closer with each passing second. Through the chaos and the smoke and the screaming, she could hear it. The beating of rotor blades cutting through desert air. The promise of salvation dropping from the sky. Blood covered her hands. Not her blood, never her blood. The soldier beneath her fingers was 26 years old. His name was Cole Mackenzie. His chest had been torn open by shrapnel from an IED that had turned their convoy into a funeral pyre. She could see his heart beating. Actually, see it. The human body was never meant to be this exposed, this vulnerable, this close to the edge. "Stay with me, soldier," she said. Her voice was steady, always steady, even when the world was ending. "Stay with me." His eyes found hers. Blue eyes. The kind of blue you see in Montana skies. He was trying to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Only blood. So much blood. Her hands moved with practiced precision, packing the wound, applying pressure, buying seconds that might turn into minutes. The helicopter was landing 50 yards away. Dust and sand whipped across the battlefield. She could hear voices shouting, calling for her. "Lioness, we need you." At the bird. But she didn't move, couldn't move. Not until this soldier was stable, not until she knew he would make it. The young man's hand gripped her wrist, weak, trembling. His lips formed two words, "Thank you." Then the light began to fade from those Montana sky eyes, and she screamed. The shrill beep of a blood pressure monitor pulled Evelyn Thorne back to the present. Not Iraq, not 2007, not surrounded by smoke and death and the terrible mathematics of triage. She was in the supply closet of Mercy General Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. It was October 2023, a Tuesday night, the graveyard shift, and she was holding a bottle of industrial floor cleaner in her trembling hands. The trembling was intentional, had been for 16 years. Evelyn set the bottle down carefully and pressed her palms against the cool metal shelving unit. Breathe in, count to 4. Breathe out, count to 4. The therapist at the VA had taught her this, the one she had seen for exactly 3 sessions before disappearing into the anonymity she craved. The flashbacks were getting worse. They always did in October. Something about the changing light, the way the air turned crisp, the smell of smoke from fireplaces that reminded her of burning vehicles and burning flesh and burning friends. She looked down at her hands, small hands, 56 years old, but they looked older, weathered, scarred in places only she could see. In another life, these hands had performed emergency thoracotomies on the battlefield, had reached inside human chests and massaged hearts back to life, had sutured arteries while mortars exploded overhead, had saved 319 confirmed lives. In this life, they mopped floors. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. Time to make her rounds, time to be invisible again. Evelyn picked up her cleaning cart and pushed it out into the fluorescent brightness of the emergency department. The wheels squeaked. One of them was bent and pulled to the left, making the cart wobble with every step. She had reported it to maintenance 6 times. No one had fixed it. No one would fix it. She was just a janitor with a nursing degree after all. The ER was relatively quiet tonight. A blessing. She had learned to be grateful for the quiet nights. They were rare enough. Mercy General was a Level 1 trauma center in the heart of Chicago's South Side. Most nights were a symphony of sirens and screaming and the controlled chaos of medical professionals fighting against the inevitable. But tonight, there was only the soft beeping of monitors, the low murmur of conversation from the nurses' station, the hum of the vending machines. Evelyn had almost made it to the utility closet when she heard the voice. "Excuse me. Yes, you." She stopped, turned slowly. The limp in her left leg was pronounced tonight. She made sure of that. The limp was part of the costume, part of the disguise that kept people from looking too closely. "Doctor." Preston Blackwell stood in the doorway of exam room 3, 38 years old, 6 feet tall, the kind of handsome that opened doors before he even had to knock. Harvard Medical School, top of his class, son of Senator Blackwell from Connecticut, the golden boy of Mercy General. He was holding a coffee cup, an expensive one, the kind that cost $40 from some boutique shop downtown. As Evelyn watched, he turned the cup upside down and poured the contents onto the floor. Dark liquid splashed across the white tile. Some of it hit Evelyn's shoes. "Clean that up," Dr. Blackwell said. His voice was casual, bored even, as if he had just asked her to pass the salt. "That's what you're here for, isn't it?" Behind him, Evelyn could see Vera Hutchins, the night shift charge nurse, 52 years old, 28 years at Mercy General. Vera's face flushed red, but she said nothing, just looked away. No one ever said anything. Evelyn felt the familiar sensation building in her chest, the tightness, the heat, the part of her that was still lioness, still the woman who had stared down enemy combatants and never blinked. The part that wanted to grab Dr. Preston Blackwell by his expensive tie and show him exactly what these old, trembling hands could do. Instead, she smiled. A small, apologetic smile. "Of course, doctor, right away." She moved her cart over to the spill, got down on her knees, pulled out paper towels and began wiping up the coffee. The floor was cold against her kneecaps. She could feel Dr. Blackwell watching her, could feel the weight of his contempt. "You know," he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice, "I hear you used to be a real nurse before you ended up here." Evelyn didn't look up, just kept wiping. What happened? Couldn't handle the pressure? Easier to push a mop than make life or death decisions. The coffee was spreading. She would need more paper towels. Dr. Blackwell laughed. A short, sharp sound. "That's what I thought." His footsteps echoed down the hallway. Designer shoes on linoleum. The sound of privilege walking away. Vera appeared beside her, crouched down, handed her more paper towels without a word. "You don't have to," Evelyn started. "I know," Vera said quietly. "But I want to." They cleaned in silence. When they were finished, Vera touched Evelyn's shoulder. "You're better than this," she whispered. "Better than him." Evelyn wanted to tell her the truth, wanted to say that she had been Major Evelyn Thorne, that she had a Medal of Honor in a box in her apartment, that she had commanded respect from soldiers and generals and presidents. But that was another life, another woman. "Thank you," was all she said. The rest of the shift passed in the familiar rhythm of invisibility. Evelyn emptied trash cans, restocked supplies, mopped floors, became part of the background, a ghost in scrubs moving through the fluorescent night. At 2:17 a.m., she was in the medication supply room when she heard the code. "Trauma incoming. ETA 3 minutes. Male, 63, motor vehicle accident. Possible internal injuries." Evelyn paused, listened to the organized chaos that followed, footsteps running, voices calling out orders, Dr. Blackwell's voice rising above the others, confident and commanding. She knew she should stay in the supply room, finish her inventory, stay invisible. But something pulled her to the doorway, some old instinct that refused to die. The ambulance bay doors burst open. Paramedics wheeled in the gurney. The patient was unconscious. Blood matted his silver hair. His skin was the gray color that meant shock. That meant the clock was ticking. Pulses thready, BP 70 over 40 and dropping. Possible splenic rupture. Dr. Blackwell moved in, took control, started barking orders. Evelyn watched his hands. They were steady, confident. But they were doing the wrong things. He was treating the visible injuries, the cuts, the bruises, the obvious trauma. He wasn't seeing what was happening inside. Evelyn's hands tightened on her mop handle. She could see it, the way the patient's abdomen was distended on the left side, the pattern of bruising, the rapid, shallow breathing. This wasn't just a splenic injury. This was a liver laceration. Grade 3, maybe grade 4. The man was bleeding out internally, and Dr. Blackwell was wasting precious seconds. She took a step forward, then stopped. "Stay invisible," she told herself. "This isn't your fight anymore. But the patient's blood pressure dropped again. The monitor screamed, and Evelyn saw a younger man, a soldier named Cole Mackenzie, Montana sky eyes fading to black. "Doctor," she heard herself say. Dr. Blackwell didn't turn around. "Not now." "Doctor, I said not now." He spun to face her. His expression was fury. "Get out. This is a sterile environment and you're a janitor. Out!" Evelyn stepped back, melted into the shadows. She watched Dr. Blackwell work for another 3 minutes, watched him make all the wrong decisions, watched the patient's vital signs continue their downward spiral. Then she couldn't watch any more. She turned and walked to the employee locker room, sat down on the bench, put her head in her hands. The patient would probably die. Dr. Blackwell would call time of death, would shake his head sadly and talk about how the injuries were just too severe, would go home to his expensive apartment and his expensive life and never think about it again. And Evelyn would mop up the blood. That was the way of things. The door to the locker room opened. Vera stuck her head in. "You were right," she said simply. "Liver lac, grade 4. He's in surgery now. They got him stable, but—" She trailed off. Dr. Blackwell never even considered it. Evelyn said nothing. "How did you know?" "Lucky guess." Vera gave her a long look, then nodded. "Right, lucky guess." She started to leave, then paused. "You know, Evie, someday I'm going to figure out who you really are." The door closed. Evelyn sat in the silence for a long moment. Then she stood, straightened her shoulders, limped back out into the ER. At 3 a.m., the radio crackled to life again. "Mercy, General, this is Unit 17. We are inbound with a critical patient. ETA 8 minutes, male mid-40s, extreme agitation, possible psychiatric emergency. Subject is 6'10", approximately 310 pounds. Police escort requested." Evelyn's hands paused on the IV bag she was holding. 6'10", 310 pounds. Something cold slithered down her spine. "Copy that, Unit 17, the unit clerk responded. "We'll have security standing by." Dr. Blackwell appeared in the nurse's station. He looked annoyed. "Great, a psych case. Just what we need on a busy night." "They said he's big," Vera offered. "Maybe we should have more than just security." "It's fine. We've handled big guys before. Restraints and Haldol. Easy." But Evelyn was still thinking about the description. 6'10", 310 pounds. Extreme agitation. She had seen men like that before, had treated them, had held their hands while they came back from whatever hell was playing behind their eyes. PTSD. It had to be PTSD. Which meant this wasn't going to be easy at all. The 8 minutes crawled by. Evelyn positioned herself near Bay 2, not too close, not obvious, but close enough to see, to help if needed. The ambulance bay doors opened. The paramedics came in first. Their faces were pale, stressed. One of them had a scratch on his cheek. Fresh blood. "He refused restraints," the lead paramedic said quickly. "We tried, but he fought us. We thought it was safer to just talk him in." Behind them, a mountain of a man stepped through the doors. Sergeant Cole Mackenzie. Evelyn knew his rank immediately, could see it in the way he moved, the way he scanned the room, the tactical awareness that never quite left, even years after discharge. He was massive, broad shoulders that filled the doorway, hands that looked like they could crush concrete, a thick beard, mostly brown but streaked with gray. His eyes were wild, darting, searching. And they were blue, Montana sky blue. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. No, it couldn't be. It had been 16 years. He would be older now, heavier, changed. But those eyes were the same. "Where is she?" Cole roared. His voice was a thunderclap in the confined space. "Where the hell is she?" The ER erupted into controlled chaos. Patients screamed. Nurses backed away. Security guards moved forward, hands on their batons. Dr. Blackwell stepped up, shoulders back, projecting authority. "Sir, you need to calm down. This is a hospital." It was exactly the wrong thing to say. Cole's head snapped toward him, and in that moment, Evelyn saw the truth. Cole Mackenzie wasn't here, not really. His body was in Mercy General, but his mind was somewhere else. Some desert, some battlefield, some hell that wouldn't let him go. "Identify yourself," Cole shouted at Dr. Blackwell. "I'm Dr. Blackwell. You need to—" Cole moved. For a man his size, he moved with terrifying speed. He covered the 20 feet to the nurse's station in 3 strides, grabbed the edge of the counter, flipped it. The entire station crashed over. Computers, phones, medical supplies, everything scattered across the floor in an explosion of plastic and metal. The 2 security guards rushed forward. Paul Reeves was 55, ex-cop, 240 pounds. He had worked at Mercy General for 12 years and had dealt with his share of difficult patients. He reached for Cole's arm. Cole didn't even look at him, just backhanded him across the chest. The impact lifted Paul off his feet and sent him crashing into a medical cart. Metal instruments clattered loudly across the floor. Paul lay still, gasping for breath. The second guard, Dave Morrison, was 23 and a college student working part-time. He stood frozen, baton raised, shaking. Cole turned to him, saw the weapon, saw threat. "Weapon!" he screamed. "Combatant with weapon!" He grabbed Dave by his security vest, lifted him one-handed. 310 pounds of muscle and trauma and rage. Dave's feet left the ground. "Sir, please," Dave managed. Cole threw him like he weighed nothing. Dave flew backward, hit the wall, slid down, didn't move. The ER dissolved into pandemonium. Patients scrambled for the exits. Nurses screamed. Someone hit the panic button. Dr. Blackwell backed away, his face white, all his authority and confidence evaporating in the face of real violence. Cole wasn't stopping. He grabbed an IV pole, ripped it from its stand. The metal twisted in his hands like aluminum foil. He held it like a baseball bat. "Get down!" he bellowed to no one, to everyone, to the ghosts only he could see. "Incoming! Mortars incoming!" He swung the pole. It slammed into the reception desk. The safety glass shattered, exploded inward. The receptionist dove under her desk, screaming. Cole was clearing sectors, protecting his flank, fighting a battle that existed only in his fractured mind. Dr. Blackwell was cornered against the wall. Cole advanced on him, raising the pole, preparing to strike. "Tell me where the extraction point is," Cole screamed. Saliva flew from his mouth. His eyes were wide, unseeing. "Tell me." "I don't know," Dr. Blackwell sobbed, actual tears running down his face. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please." The pole rose higher. Evelyn dropped her clipboard. The sound of it hitting the floor was soft, barely audible over the chaos. But she made her decision in that fraction of a second. 16 years of hiding, of being invisible, of playing small, all of it gone. She walked forward, not ran, walked. Because running triggers a predator response. Running tells a trained soldier that you're prey. Running gets you killed. She walked with purpose, with precision. The limp was gone. The trembling hands were steady. Her shoulders were back. Her head was high. The distance between Evelyn Thorne and Sergeant Cole Mackenzie was 30 feet. To the people watching from behind overturned chairs and curtained exam rooms, it looked like a suicide attempt. This tiny woman, barely 5'3", maybe 120 pounds, soaking wet, walking toward a giant who had just destroyed 2 grown men. "Evie, no!" Vera screamed. "Get back!" Evelyn ignored her. 20 feet, 15 feet. She could see the tattoo on Cole's forearm now, faded. The 75th Ranger Regiment insignia. She had treated men with that same tattoo, had zipped body bags closed over that same insignia. 10 feet. She stopped. "Sergeant Mackenzie," her voice cut through the chaos like a blade, clear, commanding, projected from the diaphragm. Not loud, not screaming, but impossible to ignore. It was the voice of Major Evelyn Thorne, the voice that had given orders under fire, the voice that soldiers had followed into hell. Cole froze. The IV pole hovered inches from Dr. Blackwell's head. Cole's entire body tensed. ready to strike, ready to kill. But that voice, that command voice, it cut through the fog in his brain. He spun around, searching for the source. He saw a small woman in oversized scrubs, gray hair, weathered face, but her eyes were steel, were certainty. Were the eyes of someone who had stood in places like this before and never blinked. "Identify," Cole barked. His stance shifted, lower, balanced, ready to engage. Evelyn's hands came up, chest level, open, non-threatening, but ready. "Corpsman up," she said. The military terminology was specific, precise. A callman up was a medic, a healer, not a threat. Cole blinked, confusion warring with rage in his eyes. "Doc," Evelyn said, her voice hard as iron. "Stand down, Ranger." She took one step closer, 5 feet now, well within striking range. One swing of that pole would shatter every bone in her upper body. "We are in the green zone. The perimeter is secure. You are flagging a friendly. Lower your weapon." Dr. Blackwell, still cowering against the wall, looked up at Evelyn in complete bewilderment. What was she saying? What was a green zone? Cole shook his head, fighting the visions, fighting the memories that were more real than the hospital around him. No, they're coming. The insurgents. They breached the perimeter. I have to find her. I have to find Mary. "Mary is safe," Evelyn lied. Her tone never wavered. "I just radioed command. Mary is at the LZ. She's waiting for you, Sergeant. But you can't go to her with a weapon. You know the protocol." Cole's breathing hitched. He looked at the pole in his hands, looked back at Evelyn. The rage was starting to crack, replaced by something worse. Heartbreak. Devastating, soul-crushing grief. "I couldn't protect her," he choked out. A single tear cut a clean line through the dirt and sweat on his cheek. "I'm too slow. I'm always too slow. They got to her before I could—" "You're not slow," Evelyn said. Her voice changed, shifted from commanding to comforting, from officer to friend. "You're the lead element, Cole, but the fight is over. The mission is complete. Weapon down." She reached out, her hand trembling now, not from weakness, from adrenaline, from the weight of this moment. She touched the cold steel of the IV pole. "Give it to me, Sergeant," she said softly. "Mission complete." For a heartbeat, the entire ER held its breath. 50 people, frozen, watching. Cole's grip on the pole loosened. His eyes searched Evelyn's face, looking for deception, for betrayal, for one more reason to keep fighting. He found none. Is everyone safe?" he whispered. "All clear," Evelyn said. Cole let out a shuddering breath, released the pole. Evelyn took it, set it gently on the floor. For one perfect moment, there was peace. Then the elevator doors at the far end of the hall dinged. The sound shattered the fragile reality Evelyn had constructed. 2 police officers burst out, guns drawn, shouting, "Police! Drop it! Get on the ground now!" The sudden noise, the shouted commands, the visible weapons, all of it crashed through Cole's mind like a wrecking ball. The green zone vanished. The safety disappeared. The medic in front of him transformed. His eyes went wide, feral. The PTSD slammed back with renewed violence. "Ambush!" he screamed. He didn't go for the pole. He went for Evelyn. His hand shot out, fingers like steel cables wrapped around her throat. He lifted her off the ground as if she weighed nothing, one-handed. "Traitor!" Cole roared. "You set me up. You called them in. Shoot him. Shoot him, Doctor." Blackwell screamed from the floor. The police officers hesitated. They couldn't get a clean shot, not without hitting the small woman dangling in the giant's grip. Evelyn's feet kicked helplessly. She was suspended 4 feet off the ground. The pressure on her windpipe was immense, crushing. Her vision began to spot with black dots. He was going to kill her, was going to crush her larynx in seconds. But Evelyn Thorne had not survived 22 years in the Army by panicking. Her face turned purple, her eyes watered, but her mind was clear, calculating. She didn't claw at his hands like a victim. She reached for his thumb. The human hand is an incredible tool, but it's also a collection of small bones and joints, weak points, leverage points. Evelyn swung her legs up, used her momentum to wrap them around Cole's massive bicep, gained purchase, gained leverage. She isolated his thumb, the weakest point of his grip, bent it backward against the joint. Hard. At the same time, she drove her elbow into the cluster of nerves on the inside of his forearm. The radial nerve, the ulnar nerve. Pressure points that turned strong men into statues of pain. It was a Krav Maga technique, taught to special forces, designed to disarm larger opponents. Cole roared. His grip involuntarily released. Evelyn dropped, hit the floor, gasped for air, but she didn't retreat. As Cole stumbled back, clutching his arm, he swung a wild haymaker punch at her head. A blow that would have decapitated her, would have killed her instantly. Evelyn ducked. The fist passed over her head, so close she felt the wind. She pivoted on her left heel, moved behind him, kicked the back of his right knee with precise force. The joint buckled. 310 pounds crashed to one knee. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arm around his neck from behind. Not a choke. A vascular hold, cutting off blood flow to the brain without damaging the windpipe. Her left arm locked across his carotid arteries. Her right hand gripped her left bicep. She cinched it tight, squeezed. "Sleep, Sergeant," she rasped into his ear. Her own throat was bruised, her voice strained. "Just sleep. You're safe. Just sleep." Cole bucked like a wild bronco. He slammed backward, trying to crush her against the wall. Evelyn grunted as her back hit concrete. Pain exploded through her spine, but she held on. She wrapped her legs around his waist, locked her ankles. The hooks were in. She was a backpack of doom attached to a giant. The police officers stood frozen, guns still raised, mouths agape. Dr. Blackwell watched in stunned silence. 10 seconds passed, 20 seconds. Cole's thrashing slowed. His massive arms fell to his sides. His legs gave out. Evelyn rode him down to the floor, maintained the hold until she felt his body go completely limp. Then she checked his pulse. Strong, steady. She released him, rolled away. Lay on the cold linoleum, gasping for breath, massaging her bruised throat. The room was dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the vending machine down the hall and Evelyn's ragged breathing. Slowly she sat up, adjusted her messy bun, pulled her oversized scrubs back into place. She looked up to see 50 pairs of eyes staring at her. Vera Hutchins slowly stood from behind the overturned desk. Her face was white. Her hands were shaking. "Evie," she whispered. "What?" "Who are you?" Evelyn looked down at her hands. They were shaking again. She looked at the unconscious giant, at the destroyed ER, at the police officers with their guns still drawn. "He needs 10 milligrams of Haldol and 2 of Ativan," she said. Her voice was hoarse, damaged. "And get a cardiac monitor on him. He's got an arrhythmia." She stood, ignoring the stares. "I need to go to the bathroom." She walked past the stunned police officers, past the gaping doctors. Through the double doors, behind her, she heard one of the older officers speak. Captain something. She didn't catch the name. "That wasn't nursing school," he said. "That was special forces." Evelyn kept walking, into the bathroom, locked the door, leaned against the sink, looked at herself in the mirror. The disguise was gone. The trembling hands, the hunched shoulders, the invisible woman. Gone. In the mirror was Major Evelyn Thorne, bruised, exhausted, but unmistakable. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was distorted, electronically altered. "Evelyn Thorne, or should I say Major Thorne, or perhaps I should use your real call sign, Lioness." Her blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "A friend. Look up." Evelyn looked up, saw the security camera in the corner of the bathroom. The red light was blinking. "They saw everything," the voice said. "The combat techniques, the tactical awareness. Dr. Blackwell is already on the phone with his contacts. They're going to figure out who you are. What do you want? To warn you, they're not coming to arrest you. They're coming to silence you. You and Cole McKenzie, you're both loose ends. Witnesses to something that was supposed to stay buried. Buried? What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Iraq, 2007. The convoy, the 14 soldiers. The orders that were never supposed to be questioned. The voice paused. The people who gave those orders don't want anyone asking why 14 men should have been left to die. They don't want anyone to know that their negligence, their cowardice, would have resulted in 14 body bags if one major hadn't refused to follow orders. Evelyn's hands gripped the sink. That's classified. Not for long. Dr. Blackwell's digging. And when he finds the truth, people are going to start asking questions. Questions that powerful people don't want answered. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. In about 6 hours, they're going to offer you a choice. Take it back. Say it was self-defense. Sign the NDAs or face consequences. The voice softened. I served with you in Fallujah, Major. You saved my life. I'm trying to return the favor. Be ready. The line went dead. Evelyn stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. 16 years she had been so careful, had buried herself so deep, and now, in one night, everything was unraveling. Someone knocked on the door. Evie, it's Vera. The police want to talk to you. Evelyn took a deep breath, squared her shoulders. Whatever was coming, she would face it the same way she had faced everything else, standing tall. She opened the door and walked out to meet whatever waited in the fluorescent brightness beyond. The interrogation room was not designed for comfort. 4 pale green walls, a metal table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs that had been sat in by 1,000 suspects, witnesses, and broken people, a flickering fluorescent light overhead that hummed with the persistence of a mosquito that refused to die. Sheriff Roy Bennett sat across from Evelyn, 62 years old, 38 years with the Chicago Police Department, a face carved from weathered stone and hard choices, eyes that had seen every lie the city had to offer and a few the city hadn't invented yet. He tapped his pen against his notebook. The sound was rhythmic, deliberate, designed to fill the silence, to make suspects uncomfortable enough to fill that silence with words they would regret. Evelyn sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, back straight. She had been in rooms like this before, on the other side of interrogations, debriefings. The kind of conversations that happened in windowless rooms with recording equipment and lawyers present and careers that ended before the door closed. She knew how to wait. She had learned patience in places where impatience got you killed. That was quite a display out there, Ms. Thorne, Sheriff Bennett said finally. His voice was gravel and whiskey and late nights that turned into early mornings. 6'10", 310 pounds, combat trained, PTSD-fueled rage. You put him to sleep like a baby. Evelyn said nothing. The thing is, Bennett continued, leaning forward slightly, that wasn't luck. That wasn't adrenaline. That wasn't even courage, though God knows you've got that in spades. He paused. That was training, specific training, the kind they teach to Special Forces operators, the kind they don't teach at the YMCA. I took a self-defense class, Evelyn said quietly. Her voice was steady, unremarkable. The voice of someone who had nothing to hide because hiding had become her default state. Bennett laughed, a short, sharp bark that held no humor. Ma'am, with all due respect, that's bullshit. I served. 20 years Army before I became a cop. 2 deployments, Iraq and Afghanistan. I've seen combat medics work. I've seen Rangers train. I've seen Delta operators do things that shouldn't be physically possible. He pointed at her with his pen. What you did out there, that was Special Operations tradecraft, and we both know it. The door opened without a knock. Dr. Preston Blackwell entered. He didn't ask permission, didn't apologize for the interruption, just walked in like he owned the room, like he owned the hospital, like he owned every space his expensive shoes touched. His shirt was rumpled. His tie was loose. There was a coffee stain on his collar that he hadn't noticed. For the first time since Evelyn had met him, he looked rattled. The golden boy veneer had cracked, and underneath was something far less appealing. "Sheriff, I need to speak with you. Privately." His eyes flicked to Evelyn with something that might have been fear, or might have been anger, or might have been both. Bennett looked annoyed. "I'm in the middle of an interview here, Doctor." "I know who she is," Blackwell said. He was looking at his phone. His hand was shaking slightly. Just a tremor. "But enough. I know exactly who she is." Evelyn felt her stomach drop, that familiar sensation, like falling through ice into dark water. 16 years she had been so careful. New name, new city, new life, new social security number purchased through lawyers who specialized in witness protection cases. She had scrubbed her digital footprint, had paid specialists to bury records, had disappeared so completely that even the Army had lost track of her. But Dr. Preston Blackwell had connections, money, access to people who could access things that should have stayed buried in classified databases behind firewalls and security clearances. "Her nursing license," Blackwell said, holding up his phone like it was evidence in a trial, "issued 3 years ago under the name Evelyn Thorne. Clean record, good references, everything checks out." He smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Except when you dig deeper. Before 3 years ago, nothing. No employment history, no tax records, no social media footprint, no college transcripts. She's a ghost." "Plenty of people keep a low profile," Bennett said, but his eyes had narrowed. Cop eyes, evaluating. "I called a friend at Walter Reed," Blackwell continued. "Gave him her description, approximate age, the fact that she clearly has military medical training." He paused for effect. "He's running it through their personnel database now, cross-referencing with combat medics who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, women in their 50s who fit her profile." He turned to Evelyn. "It'll take a few hours, but we'll have answers, and then we'll know exactly what you're hiding." Evelyn's hands tightened almost imperceptibly on the table, but her face remained impassive. A mask she had worn for so long it had become her actual face. "You assaulted a patient," Blackwell said. His voice had taken on the tone of a prosecutor. "Put him in a chokehold that could have killed him. Used military combat techniques in a civilian hospital. Whatever you're hiding, whatever you used to be, it doesn't matter. You're done here. Finished." The door opened again. Carolyn Winters, director of Mercy General Hospital, 58 years old. Sharp suit that cost more than Evelyn made in a month. Sharper eyes that missed nothing. She had run the hospital for 12 years with an iron fist wrapped in velvet and a spreadsheet that tracked every dollar and every decision. "Ms. Thorne," she said. Her voice was crisp, professional. The voice of someone about to fire you but wanted to do it with dignity. "We need to talk. My office, now." They moved to the 3rd floor. Corner office. Windows overlooking the city. Chicago sprawled out below them, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in its hospital rooms. Everything in Director Winters' office was precise, organized. The desk was clear except for a single manila folder and a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Evelyn's employee file. "Sit down," Director Winters said. Evelyn sat. Winters opened the file, scanned it with the practiced eye of someone who had read 10,000 similar files. Performance reviews, attendance records, the bureaucratic skeleton of a life reduced to numbers and checkboxes. "You've worked here for 3 years," Winters said. "Night maintenance and custodial services. Your performance reviews are adequate. You show up on time, you do your job, you never cause problems. You're invisible." She looked up. "Until tonight." "I was trying to help," Evelyn said quietly. "You assaulted a patient. I stopped him from killing Dr. Blackwell. You violated every protocol we have. You engaged physically with an agitated psychiatric patient without authorization, without backup, without following proper de-escalation procedures." Winters closed the file. "And you used what appears to be advanced military combat techniques in a civilian hospital setting. Ms. Thorne, you've put this hospital in an impossible legal position." Evelyn had known this was coming, had known it from the moment she stepped forward, from the moment she let 16 years of hiding evaporate in 60 seconds of action. "I understand," she said. "Do you?" Winters leaned back in her chair, steepled her fingers. "We have lawyers to think about. Liability exposure. That man could sue us. His family could sue us. And the fact that one of our custodial staff members used special forces techniques on a patient?" She shook her head slowly. "That opens doors we cannot afford to have opened, questions we cannot afford to have asked. So you're firing me. I don't have a choice." The words hung in the air between them. Final. Immutable. "I need your badge," Winters said, "and your keys. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings from your locker." Evelyn unclipped her ID badge from her scrubs. The laminated card with her photo, 3 years of invisibility, reduced to a piece of plastic. She set it on the desk, pulled her locker key from her pocket, added it to the small pile. 16 years of hiding, 3 years at this hospital, gone in a single night because she couldn't watch a good man die. "For what it's worth," Winters said quietly, and there was something in her voice that might have been respect. "You probably saved that doctor's life. You definitely saved the lives of everyone else in that ER. But I can't have that kind of liability in my hospital. I can't have staff members with secret military backgrounds using combat techniques on patients. The insurance implications alone—" She trailed off. They both knew the rest. Evelyn stood. "I understand." She walked to the door, put her hand on the handle. "Ms. Thorne?" She turned. Winters was looking at her with something that was definitely curiosity now. "Who are you really?" Evelyn smiled. It was tired, sad, the smile of someone who had been asked that question too many times and no longer had a good answer. "Just someone who used to be someone else," she said. The hallway was empty. 3:30 in the morning, the hospital at its quietest. The space between the chaos of the night shift and the organized rush of the morning. Evelyn walked to the employee locker room. A security guard named Marcus followed at a respectful distance. He had always been kind to her, had always said good morning when they passed in the halls, had always held the door. Now he watched her like she might be dangerous. Because she was dangerous. That was the truth she had been hiding. The thing she had tried to bury beneath minimum wage and night shifts and invisibility. She was dangerous, had always been dangerous, would always be dangerous. She gathered her things from the locker, a change of clothes, a worn copy of Gray's Anatomy that she had bought at a used bookstore, a photo in a cheap frame. Her mother, taken before the Alzheimer's, had stolen everything that made her who she was. Everything fit in a small cardboard box. 3 years of life reduced to objects that fit in a box you could carry with one hand. Marcus escorted her to the parking garage, said nothing the entire walk. What was there to say? Evelyn loaded the box into the trunk of her Honda Civic, sat behind the wheel, looked back at the hospital rising into the dark Chicago sky. Somewhere inside, Cole Mackenzie was sedated, restrained, being monitored. Probably being evaluated by psychiatrists who would never understand what he had seen, what he carried. The weight of things that happened in deserts and mountains and places that only existed in nightmares. Somewhere inside, Dr. Preston Blackwell was making phone calls, pulling strings, digging into her past like an archaeologist excavating bones. And somewhere inside, the life she had built was crumbling to dust. She started the car. The engine coughed, hesitated, then caught, like it was reluctant to leave too. Evelyn drove out of the parking garage, into the Chicago night, into the rain that had started falling while she was being fired. Of course it was raining, the kind of cold October rain that seeped into your bones and made you remember every loss, every mistake, every road not taken, every decision that had led you to this moment, driving through empty streets at 4 a.m, with everything you owned in a cardboard box. She drove without direction, just drove. Through neighborhoods she didn't know, past closed shops and empty parks and streetlights that turned the rain into curtains of gold and amber. She thought about calling someone. But who? She had no friends. Had made sure of that, no family. Her mother had died 2 years ago, the Alzheimer's having erased her long before her heart stopped. The few people from her army days who might remember her thought she was dead, killed in action, buried with honors in Arlington. She was alone, had been alone for 16 years. Had chosen to be alone because being alone was safer than being known. Evelyn pulled into a 24-hour diner on the South Side, one of those places that existed in every city. Fluorescent lights, cracked vinyl booths, coffee that tasted like it had been brewed during the previous administration. She sat in a booth by the window, ordered coffee she didn't want and pie she wouldn't eat. The waitress was young, maybe 25. She looked at Evelyn with the kind of pity you reserve for old women sitting alone at 4 a.m. with rain in their hair and defeat in their eyes. "Rough night, hun?" You could say that. The coffee was terrible, the pie was worse, but Evelyn sat there anyway, watching the rain streak down the window, watching the occasional car pass by, watching her reflection in the glass, and wondering when she had gotten so old. 56 wasn't old, not really, but she felt ancient. Felt like she had lived 3 lifetimes and none of them had been her own. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, considered not answering, but the same instinct that had made her step forward in the ER made her answer the phone. "Hello? Major Thorne?" The voice was distorted, electronically altered. The same voice from the bathroom. "You should go home, pack a bag, leave Chicago tonight." "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what's coming, doctor." Blackwell's contact at Walter Reed made the connection an hour ago. They know who you are now, and they know about Fallujah. Evelyn's blood went cold. The coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. What about Fallujah? You know what about Fallujah, the things that weren't supposed to happen, the orders that were never officially given. The 14 soldiers who survived because you defied direct commands from a general who wanted them left behind. The voice paused. The people who gave those orders are still in power, still influential, still very interested in making sure no one asks questions about what happened that day. Cole Mackenzie is a problem, a living witness. You're a problem, a living witness with a Medal of Honor and a story that could end careers. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, people like you and Cole don't get to just exist. You know things, saw things, did things, and powerful people would prefer you didn't exist at all. Leave, tonight. Disappear again. It's what you're good at. And Cole? What happens to him? Not your concern anymore. You've been fired. You have no authority, no standing, no reason to stay. Save yourself while you still can. The line went dead. Evelyn sat in the booth. Rain hammered against the window like it was trying to break through. The pie sat untouched. The coffee had gone cold. Fallujah. November 2007. She had thought that was over. Buried under 16 years and classified files and the bureaucratic machinery that hid inconvenient truths. But the past never stayed buried. Not really. It just waited, gathering strength, preparing to surface when you least expected it, when you thought you were finally safe. She paid for the coffee and pie, left a $20 tip for the waitress because kindness cost nothing, and Evelyn had so little else to give. Walked back to her car through the rain. Drove home to her small apartment in Rogers Park. 1 bedroom, minimal furniture, nothing on the walls except a single photograph in a cheap frame. Her unit, 23 faces, young faces, smiling faces, people who had trusted her, faces that haunted her dreams. Evelyn sat on her bed, looked at the photograph, at the men and women who had followed her into hell and come back because she had refused to leave them behind. She thought about packing, about running, about disappearing into the American heartland where no one would ever find her. She could be someone else again. Another name, another city, another life of invisibility. She thought about it for exactly 5 minutes. Then she pulled a box from under her bed. Inside was a uniform, army dress greens, pressed, perfect. 30 years old but maintained like it might be needed at any moment, like she might be called back to service. Medals lined the jacket, silver stars, bronze stars, purple hearts with oak leaf clusters, campaign ribbons from places most Americans couldn't find on a map, and in a separate velvet case, the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration awarded by the United States government, awarded for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty, given to Major Evelyn Thorne for actions in Fallujah, Iraq, on November 12, 2007. She hadn't looked at it in 16 years, hadn't touched it, had kept it in this box under this bed like a secret she was ashamed of. But she wasn't ashamed. Not of what she had done, not of the lives she had saved. She was ashamed of running, of hiding, of letting them win by making her disappear. Evelyn closed the box, slid it back under the bed. She wasn't running. Not this time. She lay down on the bed, fully clothed, closed her eyes, tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. Just the memories, the flashbacks. The sound of helicopters and the smell of blood and the feel of dying men's hands gripping hers. So she got up, made coffee, sat at her small kitchen table and watched the sun rise over Chicago. And waited. The phone woke her at 9 in the morning. Evelyn had finally fallen asleep around 6. 3 hours of fitful rest, interrupted by dreams of burning vehicles and Montana sky eyes fading to black. "Hello?" Her voice was rough, hoarse from the bruising on her throat. "Ms. Thorne? This is Vera Hutchins from the hospital." Evelyn sat up, rubbed her eyes, tried to clear the fog from her brain. "Vera, I'm sorry about last night. Don't apologize. Listen, you need to get back here. Now." "I was fired." "I know, but something's happening. It's Cole, the patient, Sergeant Mackenzie. He's crashing." Evelyn was already moving, pulling on clothes. Her brain shifted from sleep to combat mode in seconds, 30 years of training taking over. What's his status? Blood pressure dropping, heart rate climbing. Dr. Blackwell says it's just the sedatives wearing off and his body adjusting, but Evie, I don't think so. I think something's wrong. Really wrong. What are his vitals? Evelyn pulled on her shoes, grabbed her keys. BP is 90/50 and trending down. Heart rate 120. Respiratory rate 28. Skin is cold and clammy. And Evie, his abdomen, it's distended, left upper quadrant. It wasn't like that 2 hours ago. Evelyn closed her eyes, saw it immediately, the picture forming in her mind with the clarity of X-ray vision. Delayed splenic rupture, she said. The trauma from last night, when he was thrashing around, slamming into walls. The force of it caused internal damage, a small tear in the spleen. It's been bleeding slowly all night. Now it's critical. What no one had realized was that Cole Mackenzie's PTSD episode had been violent enough to cause internal injuries, when he had thrown himself against walls, when security guards had tried to restrain him, when his 300-pound body had impacted concrete and metal with the force of a car crash. Something inside had torn, not immediately life-threatening, not visible on the outside, just a small laceration. Grade 2, maybe grade 3, maybe grade... But over the next 8 hours, as he lay sedated and monitored, that small tear had widened. Blood had seeped into his abdominal cavity, slowly, silently, a ticking clock that no one was watching. "That's what I thought," Vera said, relief in her voice at being validated. "But Blackwell won't listen. He says I'm being dramatic, that we just need to monitor him, that surgery isn't indicated." "Vera, listen to me very carefully. Cole Mackenzie has maybe 90 minutes before he bleeds out completely. You need to get him to surgery, now. Immediate exploratory laparotomy. He needs a surgeon in there finding that bleed and stopping it. Blackwell won't authorize it. And without the attending physician's approval, then get another doctor. Get anyone. Call a trauma surgeon from home if you have to. It's morning shift change. Everyone's in handover meetings. Electronic records transfer. By the time we get someone else to properly assess him and make the decision..." Vera's voice cracked. "Evie, he's going to die. And I can't watch another patient die because a doctor was too proud to listen." Evelyn looked at herself in the mirror. 56 years old. Fired. possibly being hunted by people who wanted her silence permanent. Every instinct of self-preservation screamed at her to stay away, to let someone else handle this, to protect herself. But she saw Montana Sky Eyes. Saw a young soldier named Cole Mackenzie bleeding out in the Iraqi desert while helicopters landed around them. Saw herself pulling him from a burning vehicle. Saw herself refusing to let him die. Saw herself walking away now, letting him die because it was safer, easier, and she knew she couldn't do it. "I'm coming," she said. "You'll be arrested for trespassing. Blackwell will call security." "Then they'll arrest me. I've been in worse places." She grabbed her jacket, ran to her car, drove through Chicago morning traffic with the kind of urgency that made other drivers honk and curse and gesture rudely. But she didn't care, couldn't care. There was a soldier dying, and she was the only person who could save him. Some things were more important than safety, than anonymity, than self-preservation. Some things were worth the cost. Mercy General loomed ahead. The building where she had worked for 3 years, where she had been invisible, where that invisibility had shattered 12 hours ago. She parked in the visitor lot, walked through the main entrance like she belonged there. Confidence was camouflage. If you acted like you had every right to be somewhere, most people assumed you did. Security was light during shift change, different guards who didn't know she'd been fired. She made it to the elevator, rode it to the 3rd floor, ICU. Her heart hammered, part adrenaline, part fear, part something else. Something that felt like coming home after a long exile. Cole Mackenzie was in ICU bed 7, monitored, restrained with soft restraints, sedated with enough medication to keep an elephant unconscious, dying. Evelyn could see it the moment she looked at him through the glass partition. The gray pallor to his skin, the shallow, rapid breathing, the distension of his left upper quadrant that spoke of layers of blood pooling in his abdomen. The monitor above his bed told the story in numbers. Blood pressure, 85/48. Heart rate, 128. Respiratory rate, 32. Each reading worse than it should be. A slow slide toward the inevitable. Vera appeared beside her. "I tried to get Blackwell to look at him again, showed him the vitals. He told me to stop bothering him, said I was being hysterical." Evelyn pulled up Cole's chart on the computer, scanned the vitals history, each entry a step closer to death. She could see it clearly, the trend, the trajectory. "He needs a CT scan, stat, and we need to get an OR prepped." "Blackwell won't authorize." "I don't care what Blackwell will or won't authorize." Evelyn's voice was hard. Command voice, the voice of Major Evelyn Thorne. "Get me the CT scan. I'll deal with Blackwell." Vera hesitated for only a second. Then she nodded, disappeared to make it happen. Evelyn moved to Cole's bedside, looked down at the giant. Even sedated and restrained and dying, he was imposing. But his face was peaceful now, free from whatever demons had driven him to violence. She touched his hand. Cold skin, weak pulse, thready, the pulse of someone who was running out of time. "I've got you, soldier," she whispered. "I've got you again, just like last time. You're not dying on my watch." The CT scan took 20 minutes to arrange and execute. Evelyn read it herself, didn't need a radiologist to tell her what she was seeing. Grade 4 splenic laceration, active bleeding. 3 liters of free fluid in the abdomen. The spleen was shattered, bleeding into the peritoneal cavity with every heartbeat. Cole Mackenzie needed surgery, needed it an hour ago, needed it before his blood pressure dropped any further and his organs started shutting down from shock. She found Dr. Blackwell in the physician's lounge, drinking coffee from his expensive cup, looking at his phone, probably checking to see if Walter Reed had gotten back to him yet about the mysterious janitor who knew combat techniques. "Dr. Blackwell?" He looked up. His expression shifted from surprise to anger in the space of a heartbeat. "What the hell are you doing here? You were fired. I'm calling security." Cole Mackenzie is bleeding internally. Grade 4 splenic laceration with active hemorrhage, 3 liters of blood in his abdomen. He needs immediate surgical intervention or he dies. Today. Within the hour. Blackwell stood, set down his coffee. I've assessed the patient multiple times. His condition is stable. Post-sedation hypotension is completely normal. His abdomen is rigid. He has rebound tenderness. He's in compensated shock, and he's bleeding out while you drink your $40 coffee and check your phone. How dare you? Blackwell's face flushed red. I am a Harvard-trained surgeon. I don't need a janitor, a fired janitor who assaulted a patient, telling me how to practice medicine. Then you're going to watch him die, and you're going to have to live with that. Evelyn turned to leave. She would find another doctor, would drag someone out of a meeting if she had to, would perform the surgery herself in an empty OR if it came to that. But she didn't get the chance, because at that moment a sound filled the hospital, distant at first. So faint it might have been imagination, a low thrumming, like distant thunder, like a heartbeat, like the hand of God reaching down from the heavens. Dr. Blackwell looked up toward the ceiling, confused. What is that? Evelyn knew that sound, had known it for 30 years, had heard it in deserts and mountains and jungles, had heard it in her nightmares and her dreams, the sound of salvation arriving. The vibration came next, in the floor, in the walls, in the windows. The entire hospital seemed to shake. Coffee cups rattled in saucers, pictures swung on walls. Wop, wop, wop. Rhythmic, growing louder, deafening. The unmistakable sound of helicopter rotors beating the air into submission. Nurses ran to the windows. Doctors stopped mid-sentence. Patients sat up in their beds. And outside in the parking lot, the world transformed. Cars began to shake. Alarms went off. A symphony of electronic panic. Trash cans tumbled across the pavement. Trees bent. Papers scattered like snow in a blizzard of administrative chaos. Then, through the windows, they appeared. 3 helicopters, matte black, no markings, military grade. The kind of aircraft that existed in budgets that nobody talked about. They descended in perfect formation. Synchronized. A ballet of machinery and power. They touched down in the parking lot with the kind of precision that came from pilots who had landed in worse places under worse conditions. Before the rotors had fully stopped spinning, soldiers emerged, 12 of them. Full tactical gear, body armor, helmets, rifles slung across their chests, moving with the kind of fluid precision that came from years of training and combat and operations that never made the news. They weren't running, weren't shouting, just moving with absolute purpose toward the hospital entrance. The entire 3rd floor stood frozen. 50 people, doctors, nurses, patients, security guards, all of them pressed against windows, watching. Dr. Blackwell's phone slipped from his hand, clattered to the floor. His expensive coffee followed, splashed across the linoleum. What is this? He whispered. His face had gone white. Evelyn said nothing, just watched, just waited, because she knew exactly what this was. The soldiers entered the hospital. She could hear them on the lower floors, doors opening, voices asking questions. Orders being given in the clipped, efficient language of military operations, getting closer to her. They appeared in the hallway outside the physician's lounge. 12 soldiers in full battle dress, led by a man who wore the rank of colonel on his uniform, Colonel Grant Ashford, 57 years old, 35 years in the Army, combat infantry badge, Ranger tab. A chest full of ribbons that told the story of a career spent in the worst places on earth. Evelyn had served under him in Iraq, had watched him lead men through hell and bring them home, had trusted him with her life more times than she could count. He hadn't changed much, more gray at the temples now, more lines around the eyes. But the same steady presence, the same unshakable calm that made soldiers follow him into fire. His eyes scanned the hallway, swept past nurses, past doctors, past Director Winters who had appeared from her office, looking pale and confused and completely out of her depth. Then his eyes found Evelyn. He stopped. His entire demeanor changed, softened. Something that might have been relief crossed his face. And then, in front of 50 stunned medical professionals and 12 armed soldiers, Colonel Grant Ashford came to attention and saluted. "Major Thorne," he said. His voice carried down the hallway, clear, respectful, undeniable. "We need you, ma'am." The silence was absolute. 50 people held their breath. Every eye turned to Evelyn, the small woman in civilian clothes, the fired janitor, the nobody who mopped floors and emptied bedpans, the nobody who was being saluted by a full-bird colonel. Dr. Blackwell's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Evelyn straightened her shoulders, muscle memory from 3 decades of service taking over. She returned the salute, sharp, precise. The salute of someone who had earned the right to salute and be saluted. "Colonel Ashford," she said, and her voice was different now, stronger. The voice of someone who had commanded respect from soldiers and generals and politicians. "What's the situation?" "Ma'am, we have a critical patient, Sergeant Cole Mackenzie. He's here, in this hospital, and we have intelligence that suggests his condition is deteriorating rapidly. Your intelligence is correct. Delayed splenic rupture. Grade 4 with active hemorrhage. He needs immediate surgical intervention." Ashford nodded, turned to Director Winters, who looked like she might faint. "Ma'am, we need your operating room, and we need Major Thorne to perform the procedure." Winters found her voice, barely. She was terminated. She doesn't have privileges at this hospital." "Ma'am, with all due respect, Sergeant Mackenzie is the son of General Thomas Mackenzie, 4-star general, commander of Central Command. The sergeant is also a veteran of 6 combat deployments, multiple citations for valor. He has an active TS/SCI security clearance, and the only person within 500 miles qualified to save his life is standing right here." Ashford turned back to Evelyn. "Major, we attempted to arrange transfer to Walter Reed, but the patient is too unstable for air transport. We have 2 other combat surgeons en route, but they won't arrive for 3 hours. You're it, ma'am. You're the only one who can save him." "I'm not a surgeon," Evelyn said quietly. "I was a combat medic." "Ma'am," Ashford's voice softened, became almost gentle. "You've performed more battlefield surgeries than most doctors do in a lifetime. 319 confirmed saves, including 14 men in Fallujah when you were ordered to evacuate and leave the critically wounded behind, including a young ranger named Cole Mackenzie. You saved his life 16 years ago, ma'am, when he was 26 years old and his convoy hit an IED and his vehicle burned." The hallway seemed to tilt. Evelyn looked past the soldiers, through the open door, at Cole Mackenzie lying unconscious in ICU bed 7. Montana Sky eyes, she had saved him before, in the Iraqi desert, had pulled him from a burning Humvee while enemy fire pinged off the metal around her, had kept him alive with nothing but her hands and her training and her absolute refusal to let him die. And now, 16 years later, fate or God or random chance was asking her to save him again. The Medal of Honor recipient. Dr. Blackwell's voice was barely a whisper. You're the Lioness of Fallujah?" Ashford turned to him. "I'm sorry, the what?" "I found fragments of her file. Most of it's classified, but—" Blackwell swallowed hard, looked at Evelyn like he was seeing her for the first time, like the scales had fallen from his eyes, and he was finally seeing what had been in front of him all along. Major Evelyn Thorne, 22 years Army, combat medic, Medal of Honor recipient, awarded for saving 14 soldiers under heavy fire in Fallujah, November 2007. He paused. His voice dropped to something like awe. "Call sign Lioness, because she fought like hell for every soldier under her care." Ashford nodded. "That's correct. And right now, the Lioness is the only person who can save Sergeant Mackenzie's life." Director Winters found her voice, found her spine, made a decision. "I'll clear OR3 immediately. Dr. Blackwell, you'll assist." "No." Evelyn's voice cut through the murmuring crowd that had gathered. She looked at Blackwell, really looked at him, saw him clearly for the first time. Dr. Blackwell missed the diagnosis, twice, dismissed the concerns of experienced nursing staff, put his ego ahead of patient care. "If he assists me, he's a liability I can't afford." "I didn't miss," Blackwell started. "You did, and if you continue to argue with me, I'll have Colonel Ashford physically remove you from this floor." Her eyes were ice, were steel, were the eyes of someone who had stared down enemy combatants and never blinked. "I'll take Vera Hutchins as my primary surgical nurse, Dr. Sarah Chen from cardiothoracic as my assistant. And I need an anesthesiologist who won't question my judgment when I'm making split-second decisions. Can you provide that, Director Winters?" Winters nodded, mute, overwhelmed. "Then let's move. We're wasting time Cole Mackenzie doesn't have." Evelyn walked past the soldiers, past the stunned medical staff, past Dr. Preston Blackwell, who stood frozen against the wall with his expensive clothes and his expensive education and his suddenly worthless pride. She walked like she owned the place, because in that moment, she did. Colonel Ashford fell into step beside her. "It's good to see you again, Major. We thought you were dead. KIA in the vehicle explosion in Aleppo." "I was dead," Evelyn said. Her voice was flat, matter of fact. For 16 years, Major Evelyn Thorne was dead and buried. I became someone else. Why? She didn't answer, just kept walking, because the answer was classified, was complicated, was buried in files that would stay buried for another 50 years. They reached the OR prep area. Evelyn scrubbed in. The ritual was familiar, comforting, water running over her hands, soap working into every line and crevice. The methodical cleansing that separated the outside world from the sterile battlefield of the operating room. The woman who had mopped floors was gone. The woman who had hidden for 16 years was gone. In her place was Major Evelyn Thorne, combat medic, Medal of Honor recipient, the Lioness of Fallujah, and she had a soldier to save. The human spleen is a remarkable organ, fist-sized, purple, tucked beneath the left rib cage like a secret. It filters blood, stores platelets, helps fight infection. It is also extraordinarily vascular. When it ruptures, a person can bleed to death in minutes. Evelyn's scalpel traced a line from Cole Mackenzie's xiphoid process to his pubis, 12 inches, clean, precise. The kind of incision she had made 100 times in field hospitals and desert tents and the backs of helicopters while mortars fell around her. Blood welled up, dark red, venous. "Suction," she said. Vera was there, anticipating. The surgical vacuum cleared the field. Evelyn's hands moved without conscious thought, muscle memory from 3 decades of practice. She packed all 4 quadrants of the abdomen with surgical sponges, methodical, systematic. Looking for the source of the bleeding, left upper quadrant. There. The spleen was torn, a 2-centimeter laceration along the superior pole. Blood pulsed from the wound with each heartbeat. Each pulse meant Cole Mackenzie was 1 step closer to the end. "Dr. Chen," Evelyn said, "clamp here." Dr. Sarah Chen was 42, cardiothoracic surgeon, steady hands. She positioned the clamp exactly where Evelyn indicated. The bleeding slowed but didn't stop. "We need to deploy a Reboa balloon," Evelyn said. "Resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion of the aorta. We're going to inflate a balloon in his aorta, cut off blood flow below the diaphragm, buy us time to repair the spleen." Dr. Chen looked uncertain. "I've never done one outside of trauma drills." "Then watch and learn." Evelyn moved to Cole's femoral artery, made a small incision in the groin, found the vessel, threaded a catheter up through the arterial system toward the aorta. Her hands were steady. No tremor, no hesitation. The woman who had mopped floors and emptied bedpans was gone. In her place was the surgeon who had saved lives in the worst conditions imaginable. "Advancing the catheter," she said. Her voice was calm, educational, a teacher in the operating theater, passing through the iliac, into the abdominal aorta, zone 1. She felt resistance, the catheter hitting the curve of the aortic arch. Easy, she murmured, to herself, to the catheter, to Cole Mackenzie's dying body. The resistance gave way. We're in position, inflating the balloon. She triggered the inflation mechanism, felt the subtle change as the balloon expanded, cutting off blood flow to everything below the diaphragm. The monitor above the table showed Cole's blood pressure stabilizing, rising from 85/50 to 100/60. "Pressure's up," Dr. Patel said. Relief flooded his voice. "We have 4 minutes," Evelyn said. "Maybe less. After that, we risk ischemic damage to his organs. We need to repair the spleen and get that balloon deflated." She looked at the clock on the wall. 9:47 a.m. 4 minutes. Her hands moved to the torn spleen. She could see the laceration clearly now, could see exactly what needed to be done. 4-0 Prolene, running stitch. Vera handed her the suture. Their movements were synchronized, practiced, as if they had worked together for years instead of hours. Evelyn began to sew. Each stitch precise, pulling the torn tissue together. Her fingers worked with the kind of speed that came from doing this under fire, when seconds meant the difference between life and death. 3 minutes. "How's his pressure?" she asked. "Holding at 100/65, Dr. Patel said. "Good. Keep watching it." 2 minutes. The repair was holding. The bleeding had stopped. But she needed to be sure, needed to reinforce the suture line. 1 more pass. She worked faster. "Doctor." Chen watched in silence. This was a master class in battlefield surgery, the kind of technique they didn't teach in medical schools, the kind you learned in the worst places on earth. 1 minute. "Almost there," Evelyn said. "Final stitch." She tied off the suture, examined her work. The spleen was intact, the bleeding controlled. "Deflating balloon, now." She released the inflation mechanism, felt the balloon collapse, watched the blood flow return to Cole's lower body. 30 seconds. His blood pressure held, 100/65. No new bleeding. The repair was solid. "We're good," Evelyn said. "Let's close him up." She had just begun to suture the peritoneum when the monitor screamed. A high-pitched alarm that every medical professional knows, the sound of a heart stopping. "He's in V-fib," Dr. Patel shouted. Cole Mackenzie's heart had given up. The trauma, the blood loss, the surgery. It was too much. The line on the monitor went chaotic. Jagged peaks and valleys that meant electrical chaos. A heart that was quivering instead of beating. "Paddles," Evelyn said. Her voice never changed, never rose. 200 joules. Vera was already moving, grabbing the defibrillator, charging it, the whine of capacitors building energy. "Clear!" Everyone stepped back from the table. Evelyn placed the paddles on Cole's chest, triggered them. Thump! Cole's body convulsed, arched off the table. The monitor continued its chaotic dance. Again, 300 joules. "Charging," Vera said. The whine built, higher, louder. "Clear!" Thump. Nothing. The monitor flatlined, a single continuous tone, the sound of death. Evelyn looked at the clock, looked at Cole's gray face, looked at her hands. She had pulled this man from a burning vehicle 16 years ago, had refused to let him die in the Iraqi desert, had carried his unconscious body to a helicopter while enemy fire pinged off the metal around her. She was not going to lose him now. "Start compressions," she said. "I'm going in." "Going in?" Dr. Chen looked confused. Evelyn didn't explain. She widened the abdominal incision, extended it up into Cole's chest, split his sternum with a surgical saw. The sound was obscene, bone grinding against metal. She spread his ribs, exposed his heart. There it was, the human heart, the size of a fist, gray and still. Evelyn reached into Cole Mackenzie's chest and wrapped her hands around his heart, and began to squeeze. Manual cardiac massage, the last resort, the thing you did when everything else failed. She squeezed in rhythm, 60 beats per minute, forcing blood through his body by hand. "Come on, soldier," she said. Quiet. Intense. "You don't get to die on my table. Not today. Not ever." Squeeze. Release. Squeeze. Release. Her arms began to burn. This was not easy. This required strength. Endurance. "Epi," she said. 1 milligram. IV push. Dr. Patel administered the epinephrine, the drug that would shock the heart into action. Evelyn kept squeezing. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 30. Nothing. "Again," she said. "Another milligram." Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. Her shoulders screamed, her back ached. Sweat ran down her face beneath the surgical mask. 40 seconds. 50. "Major," Dr. Chen said softly. "Maybe we should—" "No." Squeeze, release. She felt it before she saw it. A flutter, weak, tentative, like a bird trying to remember how to fly. The heart moved under her hands. On the monitor, a single blip appeared. Then another. Then a rhythm, slow at first, irregular, but strengthening. "We have sinus rhythm," Dr. Patel said. His voice was awed. The heart in Evelyn's hands began to beat on its own. She held it for another 10 seconds, feeling the life return, the muscle contracting, the blood flowing. Then she gently released it, watched it beat independently, strong, steady. Cole Mackenzie was alive. The OR erupted into spontaneous applause. Vera was crying. Dr. Chen looked like she had witnessed a miracle. Evelyn said nothing, just closed Cole's chest, sutured his sternum, closed the incision layer by layer. When it was done, she stepped back from the table. "He's stable," Dr. Patel said. "BP 110/70, heart rate 90, strong and steady." "Good." Evelyn pulled off her gloves, dropped them in the bin. "Transfer him to ICU, close monitoring. I want vitals every 15 minutes for the next 4 hours." She walked out of the OR without another word. In the scrub room, she stood at the sink, washed her hands, watched the water run pink with Cole Mackenzie's blood. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline crash, the aftermath of holding a human heart in her hands. Behind her, the door opened. Colonel Ashford entered. "Major." She didn't turn around, just kept washing. "That was remarkable. That was necessary. You saved his life. Again." Evelyn finally looked at him. "Why are you really here, Colonel?" Ashford's expression grew serious. "Because I owed you. Because we all owed you. Because what happened in Fallujah should never have happened. And because I wasn't going to let you disappear again. I didn't disappear, I left. You were forced out by people who wanted to bury the truth about what happened that day. About the orders that were given. About the 14 soldiers who should have died but didn't because you refused to follow those orders." Evelyn turned off the water, dried her hands. "That's classified." "Not anymore. General Mackenzie declassified it, all of it. He wanted the world to know what you did, who you are. I don't want the world to know." Too late. Ashford pulled out a tablet, showed her the screen. It was a news article, posted 20 minutes ago. Medal of Honor recipient saves general's son. Below it, a photograph, her photograph, in uniform. 30 years younger, but unmistakably her. "It's everywhere," Ashford said. "CNN, Fox, MSNBC. The story of the combat medic who disappeared 16 years ago, who's been working as a janitor in Chicago, who just saved the life of a 4-star general's son." Evelyn felt the world tilt, her carefully constructed anonymity. Gone, exposed to millions. "I didn't ask for this." "No, but you earned it." The door opened again. Director Winters entered. Behind her, a crowd had gathered. Nurses, doctors, staff, all watching through the windows. "Major Thorne," Winters said. Her voice was formal, respectful. "The board would like to speak with you. I was fired. The board would like to reconsider that decision." They convened in the hospital auditorium. Someone had called the press. News vans lined the parking lot. Cameras were setting up in the lobby. The story was already viral. The janitor who was actually a war hero, the Medal of Honor recipient who had hidden in plain sight for 16 years, the woman who had saved 319 lives in combat and was still saving lives today. Evelyn stood backstage, watching through the curtain as the auditorium filled, hospital staff, media, and standing in the back, still in tactical gear, Colonel Ashford and his soldiers. Director Winters appeared beside her. "You don't have to do this. We can handle the press conference ourselves." "And what will you say?" "That we're grateful, that we made a mistake letting you go, that we'd like you to stay." Evelyn almost laughed. 12 hours ago you fired me. 12 hours ago I didn't know who you were. I'm the same person." "No," Winters said quietly. "You're not. You're Major Evelyn Thorne, the Lioness of Fallujah, and having you on staff would be an honor." "As a janitor?" "As our Director of Emergency Medicine." The offer hung in the air between them. Evelyn had spent 16 years hiding, being invisible, avoiding exactly this kind of attention. But she thought about Cole Mackenzie, about the other soldiers whose lives she had saved, about the young doctors who needed to learn that medicine wasn't about ego or prestige. It was about competence, humility, service. "I'll think about it," she said. "The board would like an answer today." Then they'll have to wait." Winters smiled. "Fair enough." They took the stage together. The crowd rose. Applause filled the auditorium. Not polite applause, thunderous applause, a standing ovation that lasted 2 full minutes. Evelyn stood at the podium, uncomfortable, unaccustomed to this kind of attention. When the applause finally died down, Director Winters spoke first, told the story. How Evelyn had worked at Mercy General for 3 years, how she had saved a patient's life and been fired for it, how the Army had arrived looking for the Lioness. Then Colonel Ashford took the microphone. He told the story of Fallujah, November 2007, a convoy ambushed, 14 soldiers wounded, orders to evacuate only the critical cases and leave the rest, and how Major Evelyn Thorne had refused. "She stayed," Ashford said. His voice carried through the auditorium, under heavy fire with limited supplies. "She performed emergency surgeries in the back of a Humvee while RPGs exploded around her. She saved all 14 men, every single one." He gestured to the back of the room, including Private Cole Mackenzie, who is now Sergeant Mackenzie, and who is alive today because this woman refused to leave him behind. The applause came again, louder. Ashford continued. "She was awarded the Medal of Honor for her actions that day, the first woman combat medic to receive it. She was promoted to major, offered positions at Walter Reed, at Johns Hopkins. She could have had any posting she wanted." He paused. "Instead, she quietly resigned, changed her name, disappeared. Because the people who gave the order to leave those soldiers behind didn't want anyone asking questions, didn't want anyone to know that their orders would have resulted in 14 American deaths." The room went silent. "Those people are no longer in positions of power," Ashford said. "Their careers are over. And the truth is finally coming out. Major Evelyn Thorne is a hero. She has always been a hero, and she deserves to be recognized as such." He stepped back, gestured to Evelyn. "Major, the floor is yours." Evelyn approached the microphone, looked out at the sea of faces. She spotted Dr. Preston Blackwell in the 3rd row. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. His expensive suit and confident smile replaced by something that looked like shame. "I'm not comfortable with the word hero," Evelyn said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I did my job, that's all. I took an oath to preserve life, to never leave a soldier behind, and I kept that oath." She paused. "What happened in Fallujah was a long time ago. I left the Army because I wanted peace, privacy, a simple life. I found that life here, working nights, staying invisible." She looked directly at Blackwell. "But I learned something working here. I learned that ego kills. That arrogance in medicine is as deadly as a bullet. I watched patients suffer because doctors were too proud to listen to nurses, too proud to admit when they didn't know something." Her voice hardened. "Yesterday, Dr. Preston Blackwell misdiagnosed a patient, twice. He was so certain of his own brilliance that he ignored the evidence, ignored the advice of experienced nurses, and that patient nearly died because of it. Blackwell's face flushed red. He started to stand. "Sit down," Evelyn said. Not loud, but absolute. "I'm not finished." He sat. "Medicine isn't about where you went to school. It's not about your pedigree or your connections or your expensive suits. It's about competence, humility, willingness to learn. And most importantly, it's about putting the patient first, always." She turned to Director Winters. "If you're serious about wanting me as your director of emergency medicine, I have conditions. We train doctors to listen, to respect the knowledge of nurses and techs, and yes, even janitors. We create a culture where the most junior person can speak up if they see something wrong, and we have zero tolerance for the kind of arrogance that kills patients." Winters nodded. "Agreed." Evelyn looked back at the audience. "As for Dr. Blackwell, he's a skilled surgeon, but skill without humility is dangerous. I recommend he be suspended pending a full review of his recent cases and mandatory retraining in professional conduct." She stepped back from the microphone. "That's all I have to say." The applause was deafening. That evening, Evelyn sat alone in the hospital cafeteria. The press had finally left. The crowds had dispersed. She had declined interviews, declined photo opportunities, just wanted a cup of terrible coffee and a moment of peace. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was clear. No distortion this time. Familiar. "Major Thorne, it's Captain Marcus Reeves." Evelyn's breath caught. "Reeves? I thought you retired." "I did. Intelligence Division, 22 years, got out 3 years ago." He paused. "But I've been monitoring the Fallujah files. When Dr. Blackwell started making calls to the Pentagon, flags went up. I knew they'd come for you." "They?" "The people who gave those orders. The brass who wanted those soldiers left behind. They're mostly retired now. No official power. But they still have connections, resources. And they didn't want anyone digging into what happened." Evelyn closed her eyes. "So the warnings, that was you." "I couldn't let them silence you. Not after what you did for us." His voice grew thick with emotion. "I was in the 3rd convoy vehicle, Major. You pulled me out while I was on fire. Spent 20 minutes working on me while mortars fell. I was the one they said had zero chance." "I remember," Evelyn said softly. "I've had 16 years, got married, had 3 kids, watched them grow up, all because you refused to leave me behind." He cleared his throat. "So when I saw Blackwell digging, I did what I could. Warned you, tried to give you time to disappear if you wanted. Why didn't you just tell me who you were? Because I wasn't sure if you'd remember me, and I didn't want to drag you back into all this if you'd found peace." He paused. "Did you? Find peace?" Evelyn looked around the empty cafeteria, thought about the last 16 years, the hiding, the invisibility, the small apartment and the quiet life. "I found safety," she said. "That's not the same as peace." "No, I suppose it's not. Thank you, Marcus, for watching out for me." "No, ma'am." His voice was firm. "Thank you for everything." The line went dead. Evelyn sat in the silence, thinking about 14 soldiers, 14 lives, 14 families who had gotten to keep their sons and husbands and fathers because she had said no to an order. Marcus Reeves had 3 kids now. Probably the other 13 had families too. Lives lived. Moments experienced. All because of one decision on one terrible day in Fallujah. Maybe that was peace after all. The disciplinary hearing for Dr. Preston Blackwell convened 4 days later. The hospital board had voted to make it public. Transparency, accountability, a message that Mercy General was serious about changing its culture. The auditorium filled again. Medical students, staff, press, community members. Dr. Blackwell sat at a table in the front. Alone. His lawyer had advised him to settle quietly, accept suspension, move on. He had refused. Pride, Evelyn thought from her seat in the front row. Still so much pride. Director Winters presided, read the charges. Dr. Preston Blackwell, you stand accused of 3 separate incidents of patient misdiagnosis over the past 6 months. In each case, you ignored input from nursing staff and other medical professionals. In the case of Sergeant Cole McKenzie, your failure to properly diagnose a splenic rupture nearly resulted in patient death. She looked up from the document. Additionally, multiple staff members have filed complaints regarding your professional conduct. Specifically, patterns of dismissive and demeaning behavior toward non-physician staff. The evidence was presented. Case files, medical charts, video footage from hallway cameras showing Blackwell berating Evelyn, forcing her to clean up spilled coffee, humiliating her in front of staff. Witness after witness took the stand. Vera Hutchins. He called nurses overpaid candy stripers, said we should stay in our lane, a surgical resident. He threw instruments when things didn't go perfectly, created a hostile environment. A patient's family member. He was dismissive when I asked questions, made me feel stupid for being concerned about my mother. Throughout it all, Blackwell sat rigid, his jaw clenched, his face pale. Finally, it was his turn to speak. He stood, looked out at the packed auditorium, at the cameras, at Evelyn. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly, I was wrong. The room went silent. About everything, he continued. His voice cracked. About medicine. About what matters. About who deserves respect. He looked at Evelyn. Major Thorne, I treated you terribly. I saw a janitor, an old woman, someone beneath my notice. I never saw the hero, the surgeon, the person who had saved more lives than I ever will. Tears ran down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. It wasn't enough. Everyone knew it. The damage was done. The patients who had suffered. The staff who had been belittled. But it was something. The board deliberated for 30 minutes, returned with their verdict. Dr. Preston Blackwell, your hospital privileges are hereby revoked. Your employment at Mercy General is terminated. We are forwarding our findings to the State Medical Board for review of your license. Director Winters looked at him. You're a skilled surgeon, Dr. Blackwell, but skill without character is meaningless. I hope you learn that. Security stood, waited. Blackwell gathered his belongings, walked down the center aisle, past the crowd, past the cameras. At the door, he stopped, turned back. Major Thorne, his voice carried across the auditorium, thank you for showing me what a real doctor looks like. Then he was gone. Evelyn sat in her seat, felt no satisfaction, only sadness. Pride goeth before destruction, Vera whispered beside her, and a haughty spirit before a fall, Evelyn finished. The question is whether he learns from it. Do you think he will? Evelyn thought about the tears on his face, the crack in his armor. Maybe. People can change. If they want to badly enough. 6 months later. The Thorne Emergency Medicine Wing opened on a bright April morning. General Thomas McKenzie had made good on his promise. $5 million. A state-of-the-art trauma center, the best equipment, the best training facilities, and above the entrance, a bronze plaque, dedicated to Major Evelyn Thorne, the lioness of Fallujah who never left a soldier behind. Evelyn stood in the new lecture hall. 30 young doctors sat in tiered seating, eager faces, notebooks open, ready to learn. Welcome to your first day of emergency medicine rotation, she said. I'm Major Evelyn Thorne. You can call me Major or Ma'am. Your choice. A few nervous laughs. Lesson 1, she continued. Ego kills. I don't care where you went to medical school. I don't care who your parents are or how much money you have. In this ER, we check our egos at the door because the patient doesn't care about your credentials. They care about whether you can save their life. She walked along the front row. Lesson 2. Listen to everyone. The nurse who's been here 20 years knows more than you do. The tech who takes vitals knows more than you do. Humility will make you a better doctor, she paused. Lesson 3. Never leave anyone behind. We fight for every patient, every time. No matter how bad it looks, we don't give up, ever. The young doctors scribbled notes. Behind the glass observation window, Vera Hutchins watched with a smile. Deputy Director of Emergency Medicine now. Her office was next to Evelyn's. On the wall of Evelyn's office, the Medal of Honor hung in its velvet case. Next to it, a photo. 14 soldiers. Young, alive, smiling. The men she had saved in Fallujah. A knock at the door interrupted her lecture preparation that afternoon. "Come in." Cole Mackenzie entered. In full dress uniform, the scars from his surgery hidden beneath crisp army greens. He looked strong, healthy, completely recovered. He saluted. "Ma'am," she returned it. "At ease, Sergeant. How are you feeling?" "Good, really good." He smiled. "The VA shrink says I've made remarkable progress. 4 months without an episode. The therapy's working." "That's excellent." "I wanted to tell you in person I've been cleared for duty, training assignment, Fort Benning, Georgia." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Not deployment?" "Not yet. Maybe in another year if the psych evals stay clean, but for now I'm teaching combat trauma response to new Rangers." He grinned. "Figured I'd pass on what I learned from you." "That's perfect, Cole. That's exactly what you should be doing." He pulled something from his pocket, a silver coin, the unit coin from the 75th Rangers. "You gave me one of these in Iraq, 16 years ago, right before they loaded me on the helicopter." He set it on her desk. "I've carried it every day since, for luck, but I think you need it more than I do now." Evelyn picked up the coin, felt the weight of it, the history. "I can't take this." "Yes, ma'am, you can. Because every time I look at it, I remember the woman who pulled me from that vehicle, who refused to let me die, who saved me twice." His voice grew thick. "I want you to have it, as a reminder that what you do matters, that the lives you save go on to do good things." He stood, saluted again. "Thank you, Major, for everything." After he left, Evelyn sat at her desk, held the coin, let herself feel the weight of 16 years, 319 confirmed saves. But how many others? How many children had been born because their fathers came home? How many grandchildren would exist because she had said no to an order? The math was impossible, infinite. She set the coin on her desk, next to the photo of the 14. Outside her window, Chicago sprawled in afternoon sunlight. Somewhere in that city, patients were being treated, lives were being saved, young doctors were learning. And somewhere in a strip mall in Toledo, Ohio, Dr. Preston Blackwell was learning too. The strip mall sat between a discount nail salon and a tax preparation office. The sign read, "Elite Aesthetics and Botox." The font was trying too hard. The word elite sat uncomfortably next to the peeling paint on the window frame. Dr. Preston Blackwell stood in his small treatment room. It smelled like antiseptic and desperation. The walls were bare except for his Harvard diploma. He had hung it there, a reminder of what he used to be. Or maybe a punishment. He wasn't sure anymore. The diploma looked out of place, like a tuxedo at a barbecue. A woman sat in the treatment chair, mid-50s, nervous. "You're sure this is safe? I heard Botox can be dangerous." Blackwell's hands shook slightly as he prepared the injection. He steadied them, forced a smile, the smile he had practiced in the mirror, the one that said, "Trust me, I'm a doctor." "Perfectly safe, Mrs. Henderson. I've done thousands of these procedures." It was true. In the 6 months since Mercy General, he had injected Botox into hundreds of foreheads, hundreds of worried frowns, hundreds of people looking to smooth away the evidence of their lives. It paid the bills. Barely. His lawyer fees from the medical board hearing had been substantial. His savings were gone. His Lakeview apartment was gone. Now he lived in a studio in Rogers Park, the same neighborhood where Evelyn had lived while working as a janitor. The irony was not lost on him. "Just a small pinch," he said. The needle went in. Mrs. Henderson flinched. "All done. You'll see results in 3 to 5 days." She paid in cash, $200. He gave her a receipt, scheduled her follow-up. When she left, he sat in his treatment chair, looked at his hands. These hands had held human hearts, had sutured arteries, had saved lives in operating rooms. Now they injected Botox in a strip mall for $200 a session. His phone buzzed. A news alert. Mercy General's Thorn Wing sees 28% improvement in survival rates. Below it, a photo. Evelyn cutting the ribbon, surrounded by staff and soldiers and grateful patients, smiling. He stared at the photo for a long time. She looked happy, fulfilled, like she had found exactly where she belonged. Blackwell opened his desk drawer, pulled out a folder. Inside were job applications, teaching positions at small medical schools, research positions, administrative work. All of them had been rejected. The medical board had suspended his license for 2 years. He could reapply after completing ethics training and demonstrating rehabilitation. 2 years of Botox and filler injections. 2 years of strip mall medicine. But maybe that was the point. Maybe he needed to be broken down, humbled. Maybe he needed to understand what it felt like to be dismissed, overlooked, treated as less than. Maybe he needed to become Evelyn Thorn, working in the shadows, invisible, underestimated. Before he could become Dr. Preston Blackwell again. He looked at the Harvard diploma on the wall, thought about taking it down, but didn't. Let it hang there. Let it remind him every day of how far he had fallen and how far he still had to climb. A knock at the door, his next appointment. Blackwell stood, straightened his coat, put on the smile. Come in. Evelyn's final act of the day was visiting the ICU, not because she had to. She wasn't on duty, but because she wanted to. Bed 7. A young woman, 23, car accident, multiple trauma. The attending had consulted Evelyn, asked her opinion, listened when she suggested a different approach to managing the patient's fluid resuscitation. The young woman was stable now, improving. Evelyn stood at the bedside, watching the monitors, the steady rhythm of a heart beating, of life continuing. The woman's mother sat in the corner, exhausted, grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. "The doctor said you saved her." "The doctor saved her," Evelyn corrected gently. "I just offered a suggestion." "Still, thank you." Evelyn nodded, walked out into the hallway. Vera was waiting. "Ready to go home, Major?" "In a minute." She walked through the ER, her ER now, watched the organized chaos, the nurses moving with purpose, the residents asking questions, learning. No one was being dismissed. No one was being belittled. This was what medicine was supposed to look like. "Okay," she said to Vera. "Now I'm ready." They walked out together, through the lobby, past the bronze plaque with her name on it. In the parking lot, Evelyn stopped, looked up at the building. 16 years ago, she had walked away from medicine, from the Army, from the life she had built. She had thought she was done, thought she had given everything she had to give. But she had been wrong. The lioness hadn't been sleeping. Just waiting for the moment when she was needed again. "You okay?" Vera asked. Evelyn smiled. "Yeah, I am." She got in her car, not the old Honda Civic anymore, something newer, more reliable, the kind of car a director of emergency medicine could afford. But as she drove home through Chicago's twilight, she thought about that Honda, about mopping floors, about being invisible. Those years hadn't been wasted. They had been necessary. You couldn't appreciate the light without understanding the darkness, couldn't value respect without experiencing dismissal, couldn't lead without remembering what it felt like to follow. She had been broken down, rebuilt, tempered like steel. And now she was exactly who she needed to be, not Major Evelyn Thorn, Medal of Honor recipient, not the janitor who mopped floors, but something in between, someone who understood both worlds, who could move between them, who could teach the next generation that competence mattered more than credentials, that humility mattered more than pride, that service mattered more than status. The Lioness of Fallujah, still fighting, still saving lives, still refusing to leave anyone behind. She pulled into her parking space, looked up at her apartment building. It was modest, comfortable, nothing fancy, but it was hers. And tomorrow, she would wake up and do it all again. Train doctors, save lives, build something better. One day at a time, one life at a time, one student at a time. The work was never done, but that was okay. She wouldn't have it any other way. Evelyn Thorne climbed the stairs to her apartment, unlocked the door, stepped inside. On the wall, the photo of the 14 soldiers watched over her. "Still here," she whispered to them, "still fighting. And somewhere in Toledo, Doctor." Preston Blackwell looked at his own reflection and wondered if he could learn to fight too. Differently this time. With humility instead of pride. With service instead of ego. With everything the lioness had tried to teach him. Only time would tell. But the lesson was there, waiting, for anyone willing to learn.